From the Oklahoman newsroom, it's time for a Thunder update. I'm Jenny Carlson here with Maddie Lee, Thunder beat writer. And Maddie, we are well into free agency now, and things have quieted down somewhat, although, you know, helicopters and people are chasing Kawhi Leonard through the streets of Toronto today. So who knows, maybe it's about to get crazy again. But I guess it couldn't get much crazier than those first 24 hours, could it?
That was absolutely insane. And it's a combination of a lot of things that you had 40% about of the league going into free agency. You had a 6 p.m. start, so moving up free agency so that it can start on the evening of Sunday and continue on to the next day, whereas usually you'd have to, get what you could done around midnight and then, maybe get a few hours of sleep and restart the next day. And you have this phenomenon now where technically it's tampering, right? But you have a lot of deals that are already in place before you run into free agency, which meant that a lot of stuff is going to drop in the first few hours.
Yeah, obviously. And, some obvious winners, the early one being Durant, Kyrie, and then ultimately DeAndre Jordan all landing with the Nets. That was kind of the first big rock in the stream. But there's been a lot of other teams. The Nets were huge winners, but there's been a lot of other teams that have won in free agency, that have made some moves that could be pretty transformational, maybe not to that degree, but pretty big for them. Are there some little under-the-radar moves that you think might really be big for some teams out there?
Well, I think most of the West got better, which is, if we're talking about the Thunder, not great news for them. But you look at a team like Utah, who already, before we hit free agency, had solidified their roster, made themselves potentially a finals contender, and have moved around a few pieces. You have, obviously, the Warriors losing. The Warriors in general got worse, because how can you not when you lose Kevin Durant? They moved some pieces around and were able to get an exciting guy in D'Angelo Russell. I wouldn't necessarily call that a win overall, since of course they're going from this dynasty to kind of a shell of themselves, but that shell still has some real heavy hitters like Klay Thompson and Steph Curry and all that. And then I think the Pelicans are going to be really exciting, and obviously they had laid the groundworks before this. The draft really helped them, but now they're doing a good job about solidifying that team around Zion and getting a good mix of young, promising players and some guys with more experience that, they hope can rejuvenate this team that has, gone through a lot in the last few months.
Yeah, they definitely have, getting J.J. Redick and Derek Favors, a couple of veterans, and guys that might be able to help them where they need it. So the West gets more tricky, a lot more potential pitfalls out there as it comes to games. And when you look at the East, it looks like, obviously the Nets are riding high, depending on what happens with Kawhi and the Raptors, but Boston seemed to come out okay. The Pacers have been making moves. The Sixers have been, it seems like a lot of East teams, and, the Bucks might be the one team that was sort of, up at the top. They lose Malcolm Brogdon, a pretty foundational player. They might be the one team in the East that's looking around going, oh, wait, maybe we should have kept that guy. It looks like a lot of teams in the East doing a lot of business.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you have, with the Bucks, they need to really take advantage of these Giannis years and make sure that they spend as much money as they need to put all the right pieces around Giannis while they're riding high in that MVP year, and have, of course, we keep talking about it, but the Warriors really taking a step back, and so now it's Wild West even in the East.
Yeah.
I think the 76ers were already a strong team last year. Were able to lock down some of those same pieces and should really be able to take a step forward. It's going to be tough. You have some of the bottom of the barrel teams that, like, the Cavs are not going to be good again.
Yeah.
You still have some teams struggling down there.
The Knicks.
The Knicks.
Sorry if you're a Knicks fan out there, friends, but
it was
wow.
a rough time for them. And especially when they came out and in the early reports, they were supposed to be a favorite for Kevin Durant to go to, and then for him to go just down the road, that's got to sting. And really now, they're doing what they can, and they might not have fallen off quite as much as it seems when everyone was expecting this to be like a potential KD, and at the beginning people were talking about potentially Kyrie until it really was made clear that he was going to be in Brooklyn. Maybe that should be their couple name in name. Brooklyn.
Yeah,
Kyrie.
The bromance name. Maybe so. Even though people are obviously focused on this new team with the Nets, as much a part of that is this sign and trade. They did a sign and trade to get him to New Jersey, the Warriors taking D'Angelo Russell. Sign and trade's kind of become the buzzword of this free agency period.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, you had that one. You had the Jimmy Butler one was probably the most in-depth one to follow along, because they knew from the beginning of the night that they wanted to get a sign and trade done, and so you saw all these pieces coming together and them trying to figure out, with one other team and trying to figure out all the money and just getting all the salaries to add up and stuff, and it ends up being this huge 4-team thing. And that's only 3 of them, right?
Yeah.
You had it happening all around the league, and I think that's because yes, a lot of options, and so some teams, you saw guys go for less than you might have expected just because there was such a scramble in those first few hours while all these dominoes are falling in all these different places. But then also just the fact that you're moving guys with big salaries. And so in order to make that happen, and guys who want to play with other guys. So you saw some guys taking less salary, for example, we saw that in Brooklyn. And that's how you got Jordan in there with 2 other, what we presumed would be max slots. And so, combination of all those things, you saw a lot of wonky stuff.
Yeah, lots of sign and trades. Be sure to get out your rosters before the season starts, folks, because there's going to be guys that you haven't thought about in a while that are going to be with different teams. It's been that kind of madness with free agency, and we're not done yet. So be sure to stay with the best coverage team anywhere at Oklahoman.com and every day in the Oklahoman.